Thank you, all of you. Hi. I'm going to talk about magic. And I'm going to tell you that magic is dangerous and is powerful, but you should beware magic. I'll explain you why. I am a physicist, as you just heard. I'm a theoretical physicist. I'm a scientist. I study the part of the universe which we understand less, the aspect of the universe which we understand less, and I'm fascinated by physics, by science, because it goes to look where we don't know the universe, so where we don't know. Let me put it this way. Here, look around us, there's some men, some women, some chair, ceiling, my hand. Simple, boring. That's our everyday reality. If you look a little bit closer, there's all sort of stuff going on, right? There's my hand, is moving. How do you see my hand? You see my hand because in that light there's some jumping electron that creates some vibration in the nothing that gets here, bumps to your eyes, and then into your eyes something happens, and through that you see my hand. But what do you see? You see me flexing. How do I flex my hand? And you see all sorts of things, right? You see signals. Stop, strong, soft. It's magic. How does all this happen? We know something about it. A lot of things we don't know. Before talking, I'm always nervous before talking in front of people, of course. So I went out. I went in a park back here. I got locked in the park because I didn't know they would close. I couldn't come out. But I walked for a while, and it's already dark outside, but the sky, there's still some light in the sky. So here I am out in the park, and there's this big, huge trees against the sky, still clear a little bit. And you know the feeling. It's just incredible. Something vibrates in you, something resonates with the outside. You feel the magic of the night, the magic of the sky. I study what happens in the very small. My field is quantum gravity. Quantum gravity is what happens in the very small. So here. Now here, what there is here? Between me and you, there's air, right? We don't see air, but you just, if you move your hand, you feel the air. So air is there. What is air? It's a lot of little teeny molecules of oxygen, hydrogen, oxygen. Where does oxygen come from? Oxygen, there was no oxygen in the universe. All the oxygen around us was burned inside the stars, which then exploded and threw out in the cosmos clouds of powder that then collapsed and made the Earth, the solar system, the Earth, and that's the oxygen around us. That's our stuff we're made from. Isn't the word magic? I studied what happens very small. So apart from the air, forget the air, there's some space here. So if you go smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, much smaller than the atoms, much smaller than the nucleus, much smaller than the elementary particles, that's what I study, the quantum structure of space itself. If you go down, 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 it's a foamy vibration jumping of little quanta of probability of space. We sort of understand it, but not really. Okay? That's the magic of the world in my eyes. We live immersed in that. We find magic all over. Magic in poetry, in love, music, in our everyday life. In the night, just walk outside in Hyde Park in the night when the gates are open. But what do I do? What do we do when we do science? When I study these things, when we study these things? We tell stories, right? I just told you stories. I told you a story about the oxygen, where it comes from, about me, Hyde Park, about what happens here with my hands. It's just beautiful stories. And storytelling is exactly what humans do most. That's what humans are, storytellers in large part. The Serpentine here is a long storytelling, or a weaving of different storytelling, one after the other one. And we as humans have been telling us stories since the beginning of civilization. In fact, much, much earlier than the beginning of civilization, since we became humans as a species. For hundreds of millennia, we have gathered around the fire. There are 5 places which are a million years old, which have been found in Africa. So it's a million years that we humans sit around the fire and tell one another stories. That's an image of people who pre-agricultural living style, and what do? They gather around the fireplace and they chat, they talk, like I'm talking to you. They tell one another stories. Is this what we do when we do science? No. We do the continuation of something else that these same people do, and that we also have been doing for hundreds of millennia, which is not in the evening around the fireplace, but in the morning, in the haze of the savannah, go out, hunt, and follow tracks. What's the difference? You follow tracks because you want to know where your food, your gazelle, your antelope, your baboon is gone, because you want to hunt and eat, right? And so also there you want to have a story about where the gazelle is gone, but there's a difference. You have to have the good story. From the tracks, you have to find where the animal you're following is gone. And how do you do it well? By not believing your own story, by being ready to change them. If the tracks become confused, you say, oh, maybe I have it wrong, I change. That's a very different way of thinking. Of course, the connection between the two is strong. The boundary is leaky. There are similarities. The gazelle that you hunt in the morning is not very different than the god gazelle that you tell stories about in the evening. And when you go hunting, you just paint maybe your face, I don't know, in red and dark, because in this way you hope that the god of the gazelle give it to you for your food, for you and your family, and so on. So there is a connection. But there is a very different logic in telling stories because of the pleasure, of the order of the world that you have in telling stories, and telling yourself stories, knowing that they can be wrong and be able to change them. That's a crucial difference. And what magical thinking is the first one and not in the second, is believing your own stories without willing to change it. Continuing to believe in the stories, even when you see differences with what you find in reality. Why I'm saying that? Because when you go hunting, if you use magical thinking, you keep following your idea and you starve. When the tribe is in danger, if you use magical thinking, you make the wrong decision and you die. And the tribe today is in danger. My tribe is humanity as a whole. I don't know about yours. And humanity as a whole is danger for plenty of regions. We have plenty of wars, plenty of inequality. We are warming out the planet to a level which is certainly going to create troubles for us. We have plenty of dangers. And the last thing we should do in this point is to rely on magical thinking. That's going to tell us nowhere. Of course, we are not the first civilization that found us in this difficulty, right? The Maya had to face a ecological catastrophe as well, or the inhabitants of the island of Eastern, or the island of Crete. They most probably faced the problem using magical thinking, and they were all wiped up and destroyed. Magical thinking means thinking that things is going to happen because you want it. If you pray God, because then you feel better, it's fine. But if you pray God thinking that by praying God, then things are going to change for your good, you're using magical thinking. And you want to believe it, in spite of all possible evidence. You keep believing it. If we keep doing these kind of things, we go nowhere. We destroy ourselves. And I'm worried by the amount of magical thinking, which I see growing and growing and growing, and the amount of irrationality, which is going all over. Magical thinking also means creating realities. We always create realities, but we won't worry about reality. We create our tribe, our little tribe, right? My mother grew up in fascist Italy, and she always tells me that before the war in fascist Italy, there was, when she went to school, there was a course that every Italian kid had to follow, which was fascist mysticism. And every German can tell you that before the war, Nazi Germany was based on the great mythology, was based on irrationality, was based on creating the great myth and following it, and magical thinking, again. Magical thinking means creating something and going there irrespectively of everything it goes against. It means creating a folk, a group. I'm Italian, right? I'm Italian and Italians. Who cares about the rest? British, who cares about the rest? Germans, who cares about the rest? That's the kind of thinking that is destroyed, in my opinion. There is magic in the world by itself, immense. But magic, because you know the words sometimes have two meanings. Magic can mean different things. It can mean being fascinated by the world, can mean seeing the wonder, seeing the emotions, seeing all the things that drive us, which is not rationality. We are not rational beings. We are simple animals driven by internal drives, love, desire of being recognized, the desire of being important in the group, etc., 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 which push us. This is what we are. That's the reality. But then we also have, because of our nature as human beings, this little part of the brain which check the ways in which we get to things, which we call reason, which stop our magical thinking and says, wait a minute, you think that, but perhaps it's not like that. We became hunters without being natural hunters. We follow the tracks, and the gazelle, at some point you say, well, the gazelle is there. Wait a minute, maybe it's not there, it's elsewhere. That's what reason is. And reason is a teeny, 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 teeny thing over the boiling, violent, hot heat of our emotion and of what we are. But it's the strongest tool we have not to make too much mistakes now that we have so many. I think that we can see magic in music, in love, in the night in Hyde Park, in a small little thing. In Hyde Park, I found this. I was walking around, I found this. Look how ugly it is and unpleasant to touch. And then you open it, and you'll know what is inside, right? It's a sort of walnut, beautiful, soft, pleasant to keep in mind. And then incredibly from here, there's a huge tree that come out. Do we really understand how it happens? Not yet. Isn't magic? I think we can see the magic of the world even if we think that 2 + 2 is not 5, is 4. Thank you.